Over the last 6 months or so since the launch of Marvel's Avengers, I've made countless guide videos on the channel now. The process I use for making guide videos has actually changed a lot in the last 6 months. I've started using infographics a lot more and I'm actually really enjoying doing them and having everything there as a snapshot so you can see it at a glance. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm essentially going to take all the guide videos I've done over the last 6 months and we're going to drop them all in one video. There'll be a ton of infographics in here so we can hopefully get through it a lot quicker, and the information will be there for your reference as well. So what will we be covering here? We'll start off then, we'll talk about stats. That's the basic core of heroes. You need to know how stats work before you can actually build them. We'll then look at the status effects that are available in the game. We'll talk about what they do, which characters can actually benefit from them, and then we'll talk about the battery effect. Next up we have currencies. I'll tell you where you actually farm them and what you'll use them for. We'll move on to XP farming next, so the quickest way to hit level 50. Following on from that, we'll talk about the quickest way to actually hit 150, which is the maximum for your gear score. We'll then have an ultimate farming guide, which is used for really everything, so all the different currencies in the game and all the gear, where's the best place to actually get them, because there is one location, and I'll give you a guide for that. Moving on from that, we'll talk about 3 essential tips for new heroes that you need to make sure to do if you want to make the most of them. We then have an infographic that runs over all the major artifacts and it will tell you who you want to use them on and their pros and cons. And then finishing up, we have infographics for all the legendary and exotic sets for all heroes, and I'll tell you roughly what you'll be looking to do at endgame as well. But that's everything we're covering there. I'll put timestamps in it because there is a fair amount and it probably will be a relatively lengthy video, but once again we're going to be covering everything. So here we go, this is my beginner's guide to everything you need to know for Marvel's Avengers. We start off with stats then, because this really is the most important aspect of heroes. You need to understand this before you can start building your hero. So the first 2 stats we have on the left hand side here, it's might and precision. So might will increase the damage of your melee attacks, and then precision will increase the damage of your ranged attacks. Neither of these are subject to diminishing returns, so as long as you're not building a tanky character, you want to stack them as much as you can. We then have proficiency next, so with this it increases your crit chance and also your perk chance. They are both affected by diminishing returns, but it's pretty low diminishing returns. Generally what I like to do with proficiency is go round about 160 or so, and that will give you an additional 24% bonus. We have Valor up next. This increases your heroic effectiveness and crit damage. Crit damage part is pretty self-explanatory. Your heroic effectiveness is how much damage your damage dealing heroics do. So just for example, if you use Thunderclap and Hulk and you have more Valor, you'll be doing a lot more damage. This also is not subject to diminishing returns, so if you are building a heroic base build, then you would look to stack this as much as you can. So you get the benefit of the increased damage on the heroic. If you crit, you get the additional crit damage as well, so you can get some really pretty crazy numbers from this. We then move on to the defensive stats next. The first one we have is Resolve. This increases your max willpower. Willpower is essentially health, and it will also increase your willpower recovery. It's not subject to diminishing returns. When building heroes, I'll always look for the primary damage stat, so it could be might, precision or valor, and then I'll look to have Resolve on the gear piece as well. I would say these 2 would be essential, and anything else you can get after that is really a bonus. We have Resilience up next. This one here, it increases your armor percent, which is essentially your damage reduction. It's affected by low diminishing returns, and personally I stop round about 70 or so resilience, and that gives you a pretty decent 24% damage reduction. We have Intensity next. This increases your stun, status meter damage and status resistance. It's affected by incredibly high diminishing returns, and personally I stop round about 40 or so intensity, and that provides me with 43% status meter damage, which is a decent amount. The diminishing returns after that, they do get really high. Now just some additional notes I have here. Your scaling for heroic effectiveness in 4 is 1 to 16.3. Normally on heroes it's 1 to 5.3, so what it essentially means, if you stack Valor on 4 with his heroics, you'll be doing a lot more damage, and that's a very popular build with 4, going for the Valor on them. In regards to survivability, Resolve at the moment in the game, the way it is, it scales much better than Resilience, so if you're looking for a defensive stat, go for Resolve over Resilience. The best way to increase your crit chance if you're struggling to get it up is via the damage buff. We'll talk about that later on. That gives you an additional 35% crit rate, which is absolutely huge. And then finally, shout out to the Science Lab for their help with this. They're a Discord of like-minded geeks that are set up to run over all the finer details such as this, and I'll put a link to them in the description below as well. But let's move on now and we'll talk about the status effects in the game. Currently then we have 6 different status effects in the game. We also have something known as the battery effect, which is exceptionally important. But to cover the status effects first, so the 3 we've got at the top, they're known as warm status effects. We have Cosmic, Plasma and Pim, so just to run over them quickly because I have the full description here. Cosmic is essentially life and hit when you fill out that status. Plasma works as a dot, but it actually interrupts and staggers enemies, so if they're about to cast a certain skill it can break them out of that, so it can be really useful. Pim will shrink the enemies so they do reduce damage to you, but with this it means it can be harder to actually hit them if you're a ranged character, so bear that in mind. We then have 3 cold status effects, and in a moment I'll explain why the warm and cold are important. But the 3 cold ones are shock. When an enemy has this status they'll take increased damage from incoming attacks and there's a greater chance that you'll get a crit hit on them. We have gamma next, which is the equivalent of poison in many other games. This works as a dot and it will spread between enemies. And then we have cryo, which essentially freezes them and it slows the enemies down. Cryo is one of my personal favourites. From a defensive perspective, it really does give you a lot more time when the enemy's just slowed way down, so you can dodge and you can parry much easier. Now, as mentioned, you've got warm and cold status effects, so what does this mean? I'll read out the description at the bottom here. This is your battery effect. Cosmic, Plasma and Pim are all warm status effects. Shock, Gamma and Cryo are all cold status effects. Attacking an enemy with the opposite status effect type, so that would be warm or cold, that they are currently suffering from will double your damage. So what you'll do, for example, on one attack you'll maybe have Plasma, you'll fully apply that so the bar actually fills out, and then you'll see the Plasma dot ticking away in the enemy so you know they've actually got that status effect. And then if you then use a cold status effect, in this instance Shock, Gamma or Cryo, that will double the damage you're doing from that particular status effect. So this cannot be overlooked. When you're building characters, you really must build the status and battery effect into their kit, because double damage, again, yeah, it's just too much to overlook. But that's the status and battery effects. Next up we'll talk about the different currencies that are in the game. Currency wise then we have 10 different currencies in the game. We'll start on the left hand side ones first. So you've got fragments, the most frequent currency. You get this from your white crates, you get it from dismantling gear, and you can also buy it from gear vendors as well. This is used to purchase gear, upgrade modules and resources as well. The next 4 we have, they're all really the same grouping, so it's nanites, nanotube, catalyst and plasma. They'll drop from enemies, dismantling gear, from various different crates. These are used to upgrade your gear, however you do not want to upgrade your gear before gear level 130, and I'll talk about that a lot more in the video, but that's something to bear in mind. Moving on to the right hand side we have units. You get this from leveling your faction vendors and strong boxes. This is used to purchase non-marketplace cosmetics, so essentially mean your in-game cosmetics you can buy using these. We have polycoron next, very important. You get them from doing your dailies, and also there's a small chance for them to drop from high level elites. These are used to upgrade your major artifacts, so that is exceptionally important. You want to make sure as well when it comes to your major artifacts, take a lot of time before you upgrade, because the polycorons come in really pretty slow and there's a lot of characters, and when you upgrade a major artifact in one character it doesn't carry over to your other characters, so just be wary of that. We have Uru up next for the next currency. This one here comes from strong boxes and gear vendors. It's used to upgrade your minor artifacts. We then have upgrade modules. This is essentially your end game materials here. So you'll get this from your elite vaults, your hives, your villain sectors, your faction vendors and your mega hive as well. This is used to upgrade your gear once it reaches level 130. That's the soft cap. You won't get gear dropping any higher than that, and that will allow you to go up to 140 on it. And then finally we have DNA keys. So with these you get them from your daily faction boss quests and your villain sectors as well. These are used to open your DNA chests and vaults. The chests are decent, but they're nothing really mind-blowing. That's all the currencies. Later on I'll tell you nice ways to actually farm these, but what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about XP farming. When it comes to leveling a game, there's essentially two different things that you need to level on heroes. Firstly, you have your character level. This maxes out at level 50, and then you've got your gear score that goes all the way up to level 150. Now, there are certain ways that you can on its own look to farm XP, but really if you want to make the most of your time, you want to be farming your gear at the same time as well. Otherwise what you'll be doing is you'll just be farming up your character levels, and then from there you need to farm up your gear levels individually. Why not do both of them at the same time? So the level that I think just about everyone uses when a new hero comes out is one called Day of the Remains. If you're a new player, you'll need to play through the story first to unlock that, but when that shows on your war table, you want to go into that particular mission there, and really you want to just run the mission from start to finish. There's quite a few chests within that mission, so make sure that you bring up your radar option so you can see the chests as you're going through it. It's a relatively short mission, you'll get through it in decent time, and you'll get a nice amount of gear and XP as well. So that personally is what I find to be the best way to level, if you take into account that you're leveling your gear score and your character at the same time as well. Now, next section we'll be talking about how you hit the gear cap. That's currently 150, but let's talk about how you would do that. At the moment then with Marvel's Avengers, unfortunately it really is lacking any endgame modes, so the closest thing to endgame we have at the moment is getting your characters up to level 150 for your gear score. So how do you actually go about that? Now, in the last segment we talked about the Day of the Remains mission. This is a great one for getting new gear pieces. In the next segment that's coming up, I'm actually going to show somewhere else which is great for getting gear, but some additional tips I'll give you. You'll be running these stages over and over. When you're running these, you do not want to upgrade your gear. This is something I talked about earlier on, before level 130. The reason for this is that when your new gear drops in a level, it drops based on the base level of the gear you're wearing, not the upgraded level. So the best way to explain this is, a piece of gear drops at level 10, what you do is you upgrade it to level 20, and then you would hope in future that would mean that gear would be level 22 for example, but it will be the base level of that gear when you picked it up, which was level 10, so in this instance it would be level 12 gear that actually drops. I hope that makes sense. I almost lost myself explaining it there, but that's why you don't level your gear before level 130. When you hit 130, your gear won't drop any higher than that. So how do you actually hit 50? Firstly then, what you'll be looking to do to take your gear score from 130 to 140, you want to upgrade your level 130 gear. So this comes via your upgrade modules. They are relatively hard to get, so don't upgrade just any gear piece to 140. Try and upgrade the ones that you'll be holding on to. To then go from 140 to 150, you have to upgrade your major artifact. That comes from your polychorons and your dailies. They are, again, pretty hard to get, so take your time before you invest in a major artifact. Later on I'll tell you which ones you should use on each hero, but that gives you a flat 10 gear score, so that'll take you up to the cap, which is 150. So nice and simple really. Now next up we're going to talk about the ultimate farming guide. This allows you to farm your gear and all your various different currencies as well. When it comes to overall farming in the game, there is one region that I would say is head and shoulders above everywhere else. It's the snowy tundra region. I've got some gameplay on in the background here. The run that I'm showing off takes round about 7 minutes or so, and that's why we've actually sped it up. I don't want to spend 7 minutes of the video on one particular aspect, and with YouTube you can actually slow the speed down if it's going a bit too fast for you. You've got your three little dots at the right hand side of the video, you can click on that and you can certainly slow it down. But it's a snowy tundra region. If you go in with a flying character for example, 7 minutes it will take you. In that time you'll get 12 bronze chests, 7 silver, 1 gold. That equated to, in one of the runs I've done, 444 units, 4 comics, 11 urus, 7 pieces of gear, 3 upgrade modules and 3 of your lore collections as well, and that's in a 7-minute period, so nothing really comes close to this at all. Now I'll let the rest of this run actually play out, but if you have watched this before, if you're familiar with this region, there'll be a timestamp on screen so you can jump forward to skip the rest of it. When it comes to building your heroes, then there are three elements of that I would say that are absolutely essential to take them to the next level. Now the first one we've actually already covered. It is the battery effect. That's where you apply the warm and cold status effect, and that will double your damage, which is absolutely amazing. What I'll mention is when you're looking to actually do that on heroes, quite a few heroes, I think it's just two, don't actually have inherent status within their kit, and that would be Captain America and also Miss Marvel. But other heroes, for example, let's say you've got Black Widow, she can apply the shock status. She would do that via her Widow's Bite. Assault Heroics, what you would do is you would look for abilities such as that in a character's kit, and if you can find one, then look for the opposite status effect and then have that you would use on your main attack. So again, going back to Black Widow, what you would do is you'd apply your shock status effect via your Widow's Bite, and then you would follow it up with a warm status effect on either melee attacks or your guns, and you'll be getting double damage in them. We then have the damage buff. We've slightly talked about this, but this buff is absolutely incredible. I actually think it's a bit too powerful, to be honest. With this buff, it gives you a flat 35% crit. That's not subject to diminishing returns at all, and it gives you a whopping 60% additional damage as well. Now, when it comes to building it, if it's a ranged character, preferably I look to have this on ranged critical hit. That will give you a really high uptime on it. If it's on a melee character, they don't unfortunately have this on melee crits, but what you can get it is on your slot 3, that's your defensive gear, and you can get it as a reactive buff. So this means when you take damage, you can actually get the damage buff. So in the likes of Hulk or Captain America that will be taking a lot of damage, you have exceptionally high uptime on this as well. Finally here we have the Tachyon buff that came with the Tachyon Rifts. So this can appear over various different gear pieces. So it could be on melee crit, it could be on range crit, it could be on enemy defeat. You slot in where it will really work for you, but this gives you an additional 50% status damage. So if you put that alongside the battery effect we're talking about, where you're actually doubling your damage, your numbers can really ramp up. But that's three elements I would say that are absolutely essential when you want to use them to build your character. If you're building a character and you're a bit unsure how to actually do this, then feel free to ask a question in the comments below and I will look to help out. But next up, what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the major artifacts that are in the game. For the major artifacts, we have 7 in total here. I've given a fair amount of information on them, so I'll just very quickly run over them, just a brief summary. I will mention that they will really start unlocking once you finish the main story campaign and head into the Avengers initiative. However, if you're looking for specific details on how to lock a particular one, go to the Objectives tab and it's all broken down there. But if we check out the first one on the list here, the Tactagon, so this is great on heroes that deal a lot of status damage. So examples for that would be the likes of Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow and also Hawkeye. This gives you a sustained increase in damage as opposed to burst damage. You have the Ring of Nibelung next. This essentially, the best way I can describe it, allows you to get your heroics up quicker on heroes that can either generate heroics as part of their kit or can do a lot of takedowns. It can make for some very strong builds. So you've got Hulk, for example, you can near enough spam Bone Shaker and his Thunderclap using this. You've then got Thor, Captain America, Miss Marvel, where you can get almost infinite and big in using it, and then you've got a melee Black Widow as well. Looking at the Nornstone of Lethal Will, this is a really nice one. It offers your damage buff when you activate it, so it will stack with your regular damage buff. If you have both of them up at the same time, you'll very easily hit 100% crit. This is very much burst damage because it has a 5-minute cooldown, so it's great if you want to take down Abomination in one hit and post it on Reddit to get some karma, then it's absolutely great. But personally, I prefer artifacts that give more sustained damage, the likes of the Tactagon. But if you want to show off, the Nornstone can be really nice for that. We have the new artifact next. This is the Void Tech Transponder, so it increases your Pym's status damage, it increases the duration of that effect, it allows you to summon Hank Pym. When Hank Pym is summoned, he's got a Pym particle cannon, and one shot from it will shrink a boss as well, which is absolutely amazing. So if you're running Pym as your main attack or your main status on your attacks, then this will be best in slot. The Darkhold is up next. This is one that was quite nice at launch, and it gave us some fun options such as the ability to call in 2 Hulkbusters, but now it's not one I would really recommend levelling up at all. So the way this works, it's a bit fiddly. Essentially, when you use it, when you're over 50% health and all your heroics are charging, then it will refresh all your heroics. So it's pretty nice, but I'd probably use the ring over this if I was looking to have a heroic based build. We have that Vishanti Appendix 13 next. This comes from the Kate Bishop campaign. This one here, it's all about buffing characters that can go invisible, so it's really for your Black Widow if you're going to run a melee build on her. Other than that, I wouldn't really use it, and I did try using it on a melee Black Widow and I still struggled a little bit, but I think if you really do focus on that element, it could be a fun build you could come up with. And then the final one we have here is a non-stone of Obsidian Spirit. Unfortunately we're finishing with a really poor one. So this one here, it's a defense buff that it grants you. The defense buff it caps out is 60%. The third perk on it is a health boost, very underwhelming. I would say that this is the worst artifact in the game. The only reason I would ever really use it is if you're someone that's maybe wanting to see if you can build the tankiest Hulk or Captain America in the entire game, and you're looking for all these different sources of survivability. But other than that, yeah, by far this is the worst artifact in the game. So that is all the major artifacts. There's some new ones coming at some point in the future that have been teased. You can see them down the bottom. So let's just finish up now. We're going to look at the legendary and exotic sets for all characters, and I'll talk about what you'll be looking to do in the end game as well. At the time of recording this video then, we're actually still waiting on the cloning labs from Marvel's Avengers. Maybe if you're watching this in the future we have it, so let me know what you're thinking of it in the comments below if it's out when you're watching this. But for the time being we don't have that, so when it comes to end game, the closest thing we have towards any kind of targeted farming that you can do would be your legendary and your exotic sets. I'm actually showing off tool tips for them in the background. I'm going through the tool tips quickly and I'm not talking about them because there's a whole lot of heroes we actually need to cover, but if you want to check out any of them, they're on my Discord, or alternatively just pause this video while I'm talking through it. But these particular legendary and exotic sets, your legendary sets is 3 of them for each character. They'll drop from your elite hives, your vaults and your villain sectors, and the perks on them will be set with the exception of the third perk, that's random. And then you have your exotic sets that drop. There's 2 for each character. They will drop from your elite heroic hives, also called Last Avengers Standing, and also your mega hives as well. So that's the closest thing we do have to in-game content at the moment. If you're not too bothered about your targeted farming, then what you can do is you can jump into, for example, your Snowy Tundra Vault. That's what I actually do when I'm looking to farm for just random gear if I've got all the sets I'm looking for. But if you don't have any of these sets, then they can most definitely be worth farming because some of them are pretty good. But that's what you're looking to do at end game at the moment. But with that, I think that's everything covered. It actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. It took an age to make all the infographics and so on, but having them has made the video a whole lot easier. So let me know in the comments below if this video has helped. If it has, and you know any new players that are playing the game, then feel free to actually share it with them and tell them to share it with their friends as well, and hopefully we can help out a lot of new players, and I imagine there'll be some older players that will pick up some tips from this as well. But let me know in the comments below if this helps out, and thanks for tuning in, stay safe, and I'll see you all again soon.